You've probably felt it without having a name for it. A sense that something larger than your personal circumstances is in motion. That the world is not simply continuing as it was, but reorganizing itself around something that hasn't fully arrived yet. Daniel Arnett, a spiritual researcher and teacher who has spent years tracking the intersection of collective human experience and spiritual transition, calls this feeling the pre-recognition of phase change, the sensation of a shift that the interior registers before the mind has language for it. There's also a particular reason why this message is spreading through people who have no shared tradition, no common source, and that reason turns out to say something important about what the message itself actually is. If evenings of calm, meaning-filled reflection are what you return here for, you're in good company tonight. What humanity's next phase is asking of ordinary people, people exactly like you, is more accessible and more already underway than most accounts of it suggest. Why so many people feel something is shifting. There is a quality of restlessness circulating through ordinary life right now that is different in character from ordinary dissatisfaction. It is not the restlessness of wanting more, or of being bored, or of circumstances failing to meet expectations. It is a more fundamental kind, the restlessness of outgrowing something. The feeling of living inside a set of assumptions about how the world works, what matters, what constitutes a good life, that no longer quite fits the person who has been quietly developing inside it. Daniel Arnett describes this sensation as the discomfort of a next size, not a problem to be solved, but a signal that something has grown and is ready for different conditions. This collective restlessness has a specific behavioral signature that researchers of social change have noted in the periods preceding significant shifts in how large numbers of people organize their lives and values. People become less satisfied with explanations that used to satisfy them. The answers that once produced a sense of resolution start producing a sense of incompleteness instead. Conversations that were once engaging begin to feel insufficient. And a person finds themselves drawn, with a pull they cannot entirely account for, toward different kinds of questions, different qualities of experience, different relationships with time and meaning than the ones they have been maintaining. What makes this particular restlessness different from personal dissatisfaction, and what suggests it is collective rather than individual in origin, is its cross-demographic quality. It is not concentrated in any particular age group, cultural background, or life circumstance. People who are materially comfortable feel it alongside people who are not. People who are spiritually oriented feel it alongside people who consider themselves entirely secular. The restlessness appears to be responding to something in the shared human environment rather than in individual circumstances, and that quality of shared origin is one of the most significant things about it. The message appearing across completely different traditions. Something unusual is happening in the landscape of human spiritual and philosophical thought right now. Teachers and writers and thinkers from traditions that share almost no common language, no shared theology, no overlapping historical lineage, are arriving at descriptions of the current moment that are remarkably similar in their essential content. A Buddhist teacher in Southeast Asia, a Christian mystic in South America, a secular philosopher in Northern Europe, and an indigenous elder in North America are each, in their own entirely distinct vocabulary, pointing toward the same general territory. Not the same doctrine, not the same prescribed response, but the same quality of moment, the same sense of threshold. The content of what these traditions are independently identifying is worth examining carefully. Stripped of their specific theological language, the messages share three qualities. First, an acknowledgement that the current moment represents a genuine discontinuity, rather than merely an intensification of what came before. Something genuinely new is arriving, rather than the old simply continuing in a more pressured form. Second, a recognition that this transition is occurring at the level of individual human interiority, in the values, perceptions, and priorities of ordinary people. rather than primarily at the level of external events or institutions. And third, a sense that the transition is already well underway, not approaching from the future, but already present in the present, being lived by millions of people who may not have a name for what they are experiencing. The cross-traditional convergence is significant precisely because it cannot be attributed to shared influence. These are not teachers reading each other's work and arriving at similar conclusions through intellectual exchange. They are each, from within their own enclosed traditions, independently arriving at similar descriptions of what they are observing in the human beings they serve and in the broader texture of the era. When genuinely independent observers describe the same terrain, the possibility that the terrain is real becomes difficult to dismiss, regardless of whether one shares any of the specific traditions producing the description. 3 things that researchers of collective spiritual shifts consistently note across the historical record. First, the people who feel a transition most acutely in its early stages are rarely the ones in positions of greatest social visibility. They tend to be ordinary people living quietly attentive lives. Second, the transitions that matter most begin in how people relate to each other in small private moments, rather than in large public events. Third, the most reliable sign that a genuine phase change is underway is not dramatic upheaval, but a quiet, widespread increase in the number of people asking questions they previously had no interest in asking. What humanity's next phase actually feels like. The language used to describe large-scale spiritual transitions tends toward the dramatic. Awakening, revolution, transformation. These words are not wrong, but they create a misleading picture of what the experience of transition actually feels like from the inside. Daniel Arnett is careful about this distinction. In his writing, he consistently describes the felt experience of humanity's next phase not as a thunderclap, but as a gradual reorientation, the slow turning of an interior compass toward a different direction. The person experiencing it doesn't feel dramatically different from who they were. They feel like themselves, but with different priorities becoming newly legible. Different things mattering in ways they didn't before. The specific qualities of experience most consistently described by people who feel themselves to be in genuine transition share a handful of characteristics. A decreased interest in competition and comparison, not as a moral achievement, but as a natural fading of appetite. An increased capacity for genuine presence in ordinary moments, finding more meaning in simple encounters, simple pleasures, simple being. A growing discomfort with inauthenticity, in themselves and in the environments they inhabit, that produces a gradual, non-dramatic movement toward more honest ways of living, and a quality of interconnection with other people and with the natural world that feels less like a belief and more like a direct perception. What makes these qualities interesting from a research perspective is that they are not being produced by any single teaching, practice, or community. People who have never encountered any spiritual tradition describe developing these qualities spontaneously, as though they are emerging from the interior of human experience itself, rather than being instilled from outside. This spontaneous emergence is one of the markers that Daniel Arnett and other researchers of collective transition use to distinguish a genuine phase shift from a cultural trend. Trends require exposure. Phase shifts emerge from within. As we go deeper into this video, there is a particular quality of this next phase that appears consistently in accounts from people who feel they are living it. Something so simple and so close to ordinary life that it tends to be overlooked in favor of more dramatic descriptions of what awakening is supposed to look like. The personal sign this transition has already begun. There is a specific interior signal that appears in the accounts of people who describe being in genuine personal transition. Not a dramatic vision or a mystical experience, but something far more ordinary, and in many ways, more reliable. The signal is a change in what a person finds themselves unable to pretend, not unable to do, unable to pretend. The things they used to be able to move past with a rationalization, a distraction, or a deliberate not looking, begin to require more active effort to avoid. The gap between what they know to be true and how they are living becomes harder to maintain without a quality of interior dissonance that was previously manageable. This inability to pretend is not experienced as suffering by most people who describe it. It is experienced as a growing inconvenience that gradually becomes impossible to schedule around. A person notices that a certain way of spending their time, which previously felt neutral, now consistently produces a faint but unmistakable quality of wrongness. A relationship dynamic they have been accommodating for years suddenly requires more energy to accommodate than it seems worth. A belief they have been carrying as their own reveals itself, on closer examination, to have been borrowed, and the return of it to wherever it came from feels less like loss and more like a modest relief. The behavior shift associated with this personal sign is one that other people in a person's life often notice before the person fully names it for themselves. Family members and close friends describe them as seeming more themselves, more direct, more honest in small ways, less invested in the maintenance of a particular image. The person, from the inside, may describe it simply as being more tired than they used to be, with things that don't feel real. That tiredness is not depletion. It is the interior's way of withdrawing energy from what no longer deserves it, and redirecting it toward what does. Why ordinary life suddenly feels insufficient to many. There is a particular complaint that counselors, therapists, and spiritual directors are hearing with increasing frequency from clients whose external lives appear, by conventional measures, to be functioning well. Everything is fine, and yet something is missing. The person has stability, relationships, a functioning daily life, and they find themselves sitting with a persistent sense of incompleteness that the conventional categories of problem solving, improve your health, advance your career, repair a relationship, don't quite address, because the missing thing is not a missing circumstance. It is a missing quality of meaning that ordinary life in its current configuration is not providing. This experience of ordinary life, feeling insufficient, is one of the most consistent early signals of personal participation in a larger collective transition. What is happening in these individuals is a shift in the level at which the self is seeking to be engaged. The self that was satisfied with conventional success and conventional comfort has quietly been replaced by a self that requires something more interior, more genuine, more connected to what it actually cares about at the deepest level. The old life hasn't gotten worse. The standard for what constitutes a genuinely lived life has simply, without announcement, gone up. Daniel Arnett describes this phenomenon with a particular tenderness. He has spent years in conversation with people who feel it and feel guilty for feeling it, as though dissatisfaction with a comfortable life is an ingratitude that disqualifies them from taking the feeling seriously. What he offers them is a reframe. The insufficiency they feel is not ingratitude. It is an accurate perception. The life they are living, while functional and in many ways fortunate, was designed to meet the needs of a version of themselves that is in the process of being quietly superseded. The insufficiency is not a problem. It is a measurement, an interior reading of the distance between where they currently are and where the next phase of genuine aliveness is waiting. The collective restlessness nobody is quite naming yet. There is a quality of unease circulating through collective human experience right now that is distinct from any of its individual sources, not fully explainable by political uncertainty or economic pressure or environmental concern, though all of these are present and real. It has a different texture from those specific concerns, less targeted, less attached to any particular object, more like a pervasive atmospheric quality that settles over everything, tinting the experience of ordinary life with a persistent low-note awareness that something is in fundamental motion and hasn't yet resolved into a form that can be clearly named or addressed. What is significant about this unnamed restlessness is the specific behavioral response it tends to produce in people who are paying honest attention to it. Rather than producing increased activity, the usual human response to unease, it is producing a widespread, cross-demographic movement towards simplification. People are voluntarily reducing the complexity of their lives in ways that their own recent histories would not have predicted, choosing quieter evenings over social obligations that feel hollow, ending commitments that were maintained more by momentum than by genuine care, making choices that prioritize interior quality over external appearance in ways that feel surprisingly natural given how unfamiliar they are. The reason this restlessness is not being named clearly in public conversation is partly because the categories available for naming it are inadequate to its actual character. It is too large and too interior to be a political phenomenon. It is too widespread and too cross-cultural to be a generational trend. It is too quiet and too non-dramatic to generate the kind of coverage that usually brings unnamed phenomena into public awareness. It is spreading instead through private conversations between people who recognize it in each other, through the particular quality of relief that comes from discovering that someone else feels the same unnamed thing, and that the feeling might be pointing somewhere worth following. Take one quiet breath right now, and notice if there is something in your own life that has been feeling insufficient lately. Not broken, not urgent, just quietly not enough. You don't need to solve it or explain it. Simply noticing it, without dismissing it as ingratitude or without inflating it into crisis, is itself a form of honest participation in what this collective moment is asking of ordinary people. What history's turning points have always had in common. When historians examine the periods in human history that represented genuine turning points, not merely political upheavals or technological innovations, but the moments when something fundamental about how large numbers of people understood themselves and their relationship to each other genuinely shifted, a consistent pattern emerges. These transitions were not primarily produced by external events, however dramatic those events sometimes were. They were produced by interior shifts in the values, perceptions, and meaning-making of ordinary people that accumulated, quietly and gradually, until they reached a tipping point, after which the external world began to reorganize itself around the new interior landscape. The specific interior shift that has preceded every significant positive transition in the historical record shares a recognizable quality. It involves a movement from a predominantly competitive orientation, in which the world is understood as a place of scarcity requiring protection of one's own, toward a more relational orientation, in which the world is understood as a place of interdependence requiring cooperation and mutual care. This movement does not happen through persuasion or moral instruction. It happens through the lived experience of enough individuals that the relational orientation gradually becomes the more natural, more available, more default way of moving through the world. The transition is always personal before it is collective. What is striking about the current moment, viewed against this historical pattern, is how many of its features correspond to the early middle stage of a genuine positive transition. The widespread interior restlessness, the cross-traditional convergence of spiritual and philosophical messages pointing in the same direction, the spontaneous simplification and reorientation of values in people from vastly different backgrounds. These are not the signatures of an era falling apart. They are, according to the historical pattern, the signatures of an era in the process, however turbulent and uncertain, of genuinely becoming something more. The inner preparation happening without anyone announcing it. One of the most remarkable features of the transition that Daniel Arnett and other researchers of collective shift have been tracking is how much of the preparation for it is happening without any central coordination, without a movement, a leader, a doctrine, or an institution directing the process. Millions of people, independently and without knowledge of each other's parallel journeys, are undergoing remarkably similar interior reorganizations, simplifying their values, deepening their relationships, reducing their investment in the performance of identity, developing a quality of attention to ordinary moments that was previously unavailable to them. This decentralized, spontaneous preparation is, in the history of human transitions, actually its most reliable form. The specific preparation that seems to be most consistently underway across this vast uncoordinated population involves a shift in the fundamental unit of meaning. People are moving, gradually, and without necessarily being able to articulate the movement, from locating meaning primarily in achievement and accumulation, in the external markers of a successful life, toward locating it in quality of experience, quality of relationship, and quality of presence. This is not a philosophical position being consciously adopted. It is an experiential discovery being made by people who find that the old sources of meaning are producing diminishing returns, while the newer sources are producing something they didn't expect to find so nourishing. The behavior that most clearly expresses this inner preparation, and that researchers of social transition consider one of its most significant practical manifestations, is a widespread increase in the quality of attention people are bringing to their immediate relationships. Not grand gestures or significant changes in circumstance, but a noticeably greater presence in ordinary interactions. People listening more carefully than they used to, making time for conversations that previously would have been crowded out by more urgent-seeming activities, treating the people immediately around them with a quality of attention and care that the previous pace of life didn't easily accommodate. The preparation for a new phase of humanity is happening in the quality of how people are showing up for each other in small rooms on ordinary evenings. Why kindness is becoming a form of resistance. In an era characterized by increasing harshness in public discourse, a quiet counter-movement has been building in the private lives of ordinary people. Not organized, not political, not performing itself for visibility, but consistently, stubbornly, choosing warmth over withdrawal and care over indifference in the face of a cultural pressure that trends in the opposite direction. Daniel Arnett describes this as one of the most spiritually significant movements of the current moment. The choice to remain genuinely kind, not because the environment makes it easy, but precisely because it doesn't. Kindness practiced against a resistant environment is not sentimentality. It is a statement about what the person practicing it believes about what human life is actually for. The mechanism through which ordinary kindness functions as a form of resistance is worth understanding clearly. Every large-scale shift in human values was preceded and enabled by a critical mass of individuals who behaved according to the values of the incoming phase, before those values were culturally normative, before they were rewarded, recognized, or even understood as valuable by the majority. These early practitioners were not idealists disconnected from reality. They were people who had already, through their own interior development, arrived at an experience of the world in which the incoming values felt more true than the outgoing ones. And their consistent behavior gradually normalized those values for the people around them. What is quietly remarkable about the kindness being practiced by ordinary people in this period is its lack of self-consciousness. It is not performed for approval or documented for admiration. It happens in grocery store encounters, and in the care taken with a difficult email, and in the patience extended to a frustrated stranger, and in the quality of presence brought to a conversation with someone who is struggling. These acts are individually tiny. Collectively, they constitute the daily practice of a different set of assumptions about what human beings owe each other. And that collective daily practice is, in the most practical sense available, the construction of the next phase happening right now, in real time, through the choices of people who may never know each other, but are building the same thing. The question this new phase is asking everyone. Every significant transition in human understanding has been organized around a central question. Not an answerable question in the sense of producing a single correct response, but a generative question, one that, when taken seriously by a sufficient number of people, produces new ways of living, new forms of relationship, new structures of meaning that the previous era's question could not have generated. The question that the current phase of human experience appears to be placing at the center of individual and collective life is not complicated or esoteric. It is, in fact, so simple that its simplicity has worked against it being taken as seriously as it deserves. The question, in its most direct form, is this: what kind of human being do I actually want to be in the time I have remaining? Not what do I want to have, or achieve, or be recognized for, but what kind of presence do I want to be in the lives of the people around me, and in the broader human world I inhabit? This question is not new. Versions of it have been asked in every wisdom tradition that has ever existed. What is new is the breadth and urgency with which ordinary people, unprompted by any specific tradition or teaching, are finding themselves asking it in the private quiet of their own lives. What makes this question the organizing inquiry of a new phase, rather than simply a personal reflection, is its collective character. When a question of this kind begins to be asked simultaneously by millions of people who have no shared source for it, the question itself becomes a kind of social force, shaping behavior, reorganizing priorities, producing a new quality of human presence in the world that gradually, cumulatively, begins to alter the texture of shared life. Daniel Arnett believes we are at the early stages of precisely this process. The question has been heard, the asking has begun, and what is being built, one interior reckoning at a time, in the lives of ordinary people across the world, is something that has never quite existed before in quite this form. The message spreading about humanity's next phase is not arriving through channels that require special access. It is arriving through the private experience of ordinary people sitting in ordinary rooms, feeling ordinary feelings, and gradually noticing that something in them has quietly shifted in the direction of what matters most. You don't need to belong to any tradition to receive it. You don't need to have had any unusual experience. The message reaches whoever is sufficiently present and sufficiently honest with themselves to receive it. And it asks nothing dramatic in return. What it asks is this: simply that a person take their own interior life seriously, that they not dismiss what they feel as merely personal or merely emotional or insufficiently important to act on, that they trust the signal of their own insufficiency and follow it, unhurriedly and without drama, in the direction it is pointing. Because what the next phase of human life requires is not heroes or visionaries or people with exceptional qualities. It requires ordinary people choosing, in small and consistent ways, to be genuine. Daniel Arnett ends his reflections on this transition with a thought that is worth carrying into the quiet of whatever comes next for you tonight. The new phase does not need to be created. It is already in the process of creating itself through the daily choices of people who have begun to take the question seriously. Your participation in it is not an obligation or a calling. It is simply the natural next expression of the person you have been, quietly and without announcement, in the process of becoming.